Good afternoon and welcome to all our SuperSport viewers. It is exciting times indeed here at Monte Casino in Johannesburg as we move through to the business end of this year's SA Tennis Open. And what a special tournament it has turned out to be from a South African point of view. Today we will have two of our very own in action in the semi-finals. Alongside me, Rob Koenig, former player and now an international voice on the ATP World Tour Masters 1000 events, and Michael Jongh, former coach on the WTA circuit. Robbie, I think everybody is happy that we've got two South Africans in the mix in the semi-finals. I don't think anybody would have called it.
No, you're right. Kevin's been playing well, but I think Isak's a little bit of a surprise package. Conditions suit him well here. I think you've got to go back to 1993 in Durban at the SA Open. The last time we had two guys in the semi-finals, Wayne Ferreira and Grant Stafford on that occasion. But it's great that we got these two guys. Great for the hometown fans to get behind the boys, hey Mike?
Oh, fantastic. We saw it last night. The vibe started picking up in Kevin Anderson's quarter-final, and that's what we'll be looking for. One of these boys, if not both, need to go through so that the crowd on Sunday know who they're pulling for.
Isak van der Merwe will be first up out of the South Africans. Yesterday he came out really aggressive in that quarter-final match, and it seemed like he just got under the skin of his opponent in that second set, which was good to see.
It was, and that was Isak's best match. He's played some good matches out here, but yesterday the package came together. He was aggressive, he was confident. He usually backs off when he has the chances. Yesterday it was different. He pulled it through.
And what made that result more impressive for me, Hendrien, is the fact that it's the first time he's been in the quarterfinals of a big event. And often the pressure can get the better of you, but I thought he handled himself excellently in tough conditions. Good mental application from Isak.
And Isak seemed to have cut down on that on the unforced errors at the big moments as well.
It's key, isn't it? Especially when you're playing against guys with decent rankings at this level. When things get tight, that's when you've got to raise the level of your game, cut out the unforced errors, play good aggressive tennis, and of course, most importantly, play to your strengths.
He has to, and he's going to have to serve well today. A nice little difference in style today up against De Varman. De Varman's not going to make many unforced errors. He returns really well. He plays well off the back. Isak has to serve well and be the aggressor. And
we saw that in his match against Rick yesterday when it got tight, especially in that second set tiebreaker. He was the one who was able to make few unforced errors, but knew exactly the right time, went just to up his game, play a little bit more aggressive, and it was at those crucial junctures in that second set tiebreaker where he was able to take it to Rick. Rick backed off a little bit, and that turned out to be the major turning point in the match as a whole.
And I think in the matchup between Somdev De Varman and Isak van der Merwe, Somdev will be the more experienced player. That must count in his favour.
Well, of course, he's been to a final before, 2009, in his own backyard in Chennai. So he's played a lot of big Davis Cup matches as well. And experience is a very valuable commodity, isn't it, when you get to the tail end of a tournament?
It is. Being there, knowing the atmosphere, knowing the pressure, knowing that you can do it. And of course, put on top of that the fact that he's beaten Isak a couple of times, and one of those in Davis Cup in South Africa. That's going to give him a mental edge.
And conditions also pretty similar. They played at the Standard Bank Arena. Of course, that was indoors, but it was at altitude on a hard court. Perhaps both of their favourite surfaces. It's going to be interesting to see if the outdoor conditions, not a lot of wind out here today, conditions set fair, whether the conditions are going to make any difference or not to the outcome of that one.
What sort of mental impact do you think it's going to have on Isak, just knowing that he couldn't pull through in front of his home fans against Somdev in the Davis Cup tie last year?
Well, I think most importantly, hey Mark, you've got to learn from those experiences, realise what you did wrong and make the improvements now, right now. This is a huge opportunity for him. Not only to get the ranking going in the right direction, but he does well here. He's going to get into the main draw of some big tournaments when the summer rolls around.
Yeah, the positive for Isak is he knows that he's playing better than he did a couple of years ago. A, when they last met in South Africa, and B, he's playing some of his best tennis this week. That's what he's going to focus on.
Do you think he might have a bit of pre-match nerves? It's a big moment for him.
Oh, undoubtedly. I mean, there's no doubt. It's his first semi-final, as Rob just alluded, let alone he had his first quarter yesterday. Dealt nicely with that. Let's hope he can take that confidence and try and step it up. He has nothing to lose. Let's see if he can put his game out there.
Were you surprised with the match yesterday between Rick de Vos and Somdev De Varman? Because Rick was one set to love up, and unfortunately he just couldn't hold on. I think you said in the commentary box in that third set there was a sinking feeling, and that's exactly what it felt like.
I think, I'm sure if you ask Rick, he'll say exactly that. And for me, it was almost a mirror image of the match that they played at Davis Cup. Obviously, that was 3 out of 5 sets, but it was that crucial third set breaker where Rick could have wrapped it up in Davis Cup and he wasn't able to do it. And as my good friend Doug Adler would say, it was deja vu all over again. for Rick. Once he lost that second set tiebreaker with the potential to win the match, he wasn't able to recover, which was, it's heartbreaking for us South Africans to see, but we were hoping that Rick was going to be able to learn from perhaps some of the mistakes that he made at Davis Cup.
Yeah, it's a tough one because people that might not know, these guys play a lot together. They have the same coach, they practice together, they know each other inside out, and that just makes it a little more difficult to come up with something surprising, and De Warman, the more experienced, and it's shown twice in a row.
I think the match between De Warman and Isak van der Merwe is going to be a totally different ball game as compared to the match against Rick, because Rick and Somdev have similar styles of play, but Isak and Somdev not.
Well, of course, Isak's going to be in his face as much as he can. Michael and I were discussing this off air before we came out here, and it's going to be so important for Isak to serve well. The first serve percentage has been okay this week, but I think in the semi-finals of a 250, you've got to take it to the next level, haven't you?
Well, yeah, you have to. And speaking to Pieter Norvel, who's working with him this week, he just said that amazingly Isak's made it through here, and the best part of his game is the serve. That's the part that hasn't really fired this week. That's a good sign one way. The rest of the game's there. Today he's got to add the serve.
And a nice little partnership as well with Pieter, because Pieter was an out-and-out serve and volleyer. Isak's game is very similar, and I'm sure Pieter's going to impart some good knowledge to Isak on how he needs to play today, pass on that valuable experience. Pieter's played the game at a high level for a number of years, so I think he's got the right man in his camp for a big match like this.
Well, let's now move on to the second semi-final of the day, where South Africa's Kevin Anderson will be up against Adrian Manarino, the only two seeded players left in the draw. What do you think of that matchup?
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I've been doing a lot of homework on Manarino the last couple of days, and I've been surprised by his meteoric rise. This time, 6 months ago, July 19 to be precise, this guy was ranked 248 in the world, Mike.
Yeah, it's an amazing climb, and you just need to look at the start of this year, beating Juan Monaco and Arno Clement back-to-back in the beginning of the year. That says something about him. When I saw him the first night out, I was like, this guy cannot be top 100. And when you see him to play, he plays differently. It's amazing to watch. The guy can play. He's proved it to me, and he'll prove it to you guys today again.
And of course, he beat Ryan Harrison, the big young American upstart. A lot of hype about him in the States. He duffed him up in straight sets in Australia. So this guy's got game. He might not look like anything spectacular because he doesn't hit the ball at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but he's got good guile, change of pace, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, he just steps up the pace in the rally, and it comes so unexpected. And that's what he's done really well this week, is he's used the altitude very smartly.
He has, and I think someone like Kevin Anderson, who relies on power, sets things up with a serve, he's just going to have to be wary, because Manarino tempts you into thinking that you can just blow him off the court. And often, more unforced errors sneak into a game. Anderson's just going to have to be wary of that.
Adrian Manarino was up against Frank Dancevic in the quarterfinals, and Dancevic ousted the top seed Lopez in the first round, and I think we expected a lot of him, but things didn't really work out for him on the day.
Yeah, I thought Frank was probably going to be one of the finalists, given how well he'd playing. But again, Manarino, when you look back at the kind of guys he's beaten, this guy's got a ton of experience, and obviously coming into a big match like this, he showed the difference. He put a lot of balls in play, and that's what I've noticed most this week. A lot of unforced errors are costing guys in their matches, but I'm sure if you have a look at Manarino's stats, not making nearly as many unforced errors as some of the other boys in the draw.
No, you're right on, and he's adapted really well. I thought Dancevic would win that match. There were two things there. A, Manarino knew exactly how to play him. He kind of broke him down bit by bit. Secondly, Dancevic looked a little flat. Often it's difficult coming off a big win, beating the number one seed, and kind of sustaining the level of your game and the expectation, because people feel like now you're the man. You just couldn't do it last night.
Well, Manarino's opponent will be South Africa's number one player, Kevin Anderson, who looked like he's the man to beat in his quarterfinal yesterday.
He is, no question about it. Class act, class player. At the start of this season, I made the prediction that Kevin will definitely be top 30 by the end of the year. And, he's been showing us the talent for a while. Back in 2008 already, he beat Novak Djokovic. Many people forget that at Miami. He beat Augustin Caleri, who was top 50 in that same tournament. Made the finals of Vegas, beat a bunch of top 50 guys on the way there, the likes of John Isner, Korolev, before losing to Sam Querrey in the final there. Had a bit of a hiatus where he lost his game for a while. But in the last 7-8 months, he's rediscovered the form, the confidence has grown, and he's playing world-class tennis, and he's got the belief. And we know how important that is at the highest level.
Well, we saw at the beginning of this year in Brisbane, going through to the semi-finals there and playing none other than Andy Roddick, and taking a set off him and playing him quite tight in the third. And it just shows that I think he's now figured out how to use his weapons. It's one thing just to blow people away at the lower levels. As you step it up, a little more mind needs to go into it, and I think he's there.
Yeah, good point.
And I think it's just good to see that Kevin is actually picking up the momentum as we're moving through the tournament. I mean, he's a little bit nervous in that first run match, and there was in the second run match, there was a slight sort of pause, a lapse there, but yesterday, none of that.
And that's generally how it works with the top players. They play themselves into tournaments. They're good enough that when they're not playing well at the start of the week, they're still able to win those matches. It's a sign of a good player. And I think that's exactly what we've seen from Kevin this week. Once he's found his rhythm, he got used to the altitude a bit. Both of us know how tough it is when you come to altitude for the first time.
Yeah, and of course, first round matches are always a nervy thing. You want to get into the tournament. Secondly, he's the top South African. A lot of expectations. Then Lopez loses. Number 2 and 3 seeds lose. All of a sudden, he's the top seed in the tournament. And the media starts saying, well, maybe there's a South African champion. And all these things he's got to deal with. And I think so far, I've been very impressed how he's handled it in quite a mature way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That burden of expectation when you're playing at home, it's very difficult to comprehend, and obviously there's a lot being said and made about Kevin. This guy's a huge talent, and as Mike said, I think it's an excellent point. He's really handling himself well. He's got it upstairs though, between the ears. You can see how calm he is on the court. He understands his game so well. He plays to his strengths so well.
Yeah, Louis Vosloo has worked with him on that, and I think it's going to be a strength today.
Yes, I think just the input from the coach, working with a full-time coach, has also worked well in his favour.
And that's another excellent point, because that's one of the biggest regrets I have, was not investing in myself earlier on in my career. You know, once you start making a couple of bucks, you just want to put it in the bank because you've been struggling for so long. But I wish I had invested in a coach early on, and that's where Kevin's done well.
He's done well, and Louis, a great guy to work with, because we know that Kevin's got all the weapons. Now he's made it to this top level. He's top 60 consistently now. You need to move forward. You need to put pressure, and they're working specifically in his game to behind the serve and behind the big round serve move forward. And I've seen it this week. He's not totally comfortable with it, but he's doing well with it. And I think if he sticks to it, that's where we're going to see that top 30 later in the year.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, gentlemen. It is interesting times indeed here at the SA Open in Monte Casino. 2 South Africans will be in action in the men's singles semi-finals today.